Welcome back to the Magic Hour, everyone. My name is Ella Jenkins, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Magic Valley. And I'm here today with my co-host, Paul, our founder and CEO. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Ella. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So in today's episode, we're exploring the theme of finding innovative approaches and practical strategies to transition our world towards a more sustainable and compassionate future. And we've got an amazing guest joining us for today's episode. Welcome to the Magic Hour, Krystal, and thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So Krystal Camilleri is the founder and executive director at Farm Transitions Australia, a registered charity dedicated to assisting Australian beef and dairy farmers in transitioning to more sustainable and regenerative forms of agriculture, business, or other careers. Farm Transitions Australia provides free business advisory and support services to help farmers build a better future for themselves and their families, focusing on financial viability, improved mental well-being, and joining a shared vision of a future food system that benefits people, animals, and the planet. So jumping straight into it, Krystal, could you share a bit of the backstory around your journey with Farm Transitions Australia, before Farm Transitions Australia, and what inspired you or motivated you to get involved in this kind of mission?
Yes, gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was only a few years ago. Look, I've been vegan for 8-9 years, and in that time I've been very active in my activism. And 5 years ago, my family and we moved to Tasmania, which is obviously heart of dairy country in Tasmania. And just randomly, we moved to some property and I rescued two dairy calves that were being sent to slaughter. And I guess that started me on my journey. A few years after that, I started a rescue and rehoming charity called Companion Cows, which is still operating, and we have foster stations all over Australia, and we basically go into dairy farms and we get these calves and some mothers as well, and we rehome them into loving homes. But I guess that was the pivotal point in how all of this started. So my full-time, my career, I run a marketing company as well. And in that marketing company, I help businesses all over Australia to facilitate their marketing and their business strategy. So these charities were always on the side, but I guess when I was going into farms and rescuing dairy calves, I started to see and become friends with dairy farmers and spend more time with them and really deeply understanding the challenges. And I guess from there, it was no longer just about the calves. I really learned that it's not just the animals that are suffering, and it's not just hard on the planet. It is really hard on many dairy farmers across Australia. It's feast or famine. There's tight profit margins. They're working really, really hard, 60 hours a week, 365 days a year. There is no downtime. That's isolating them. It really impacts their mental health and also for the mental health of their families. And I guess I started to see that the problem on a much bigger scale. And, as vegans, we can sit there and criticize and say, farmers need to do it better. But I really learned that it was much bigger than that. And how can we expect them to change if we're not offering them support to do it? So I started to look at how I could help, using my skills in business and marketing strategy with what I'm doing with my business, to how I can sort of put the two together to support farmers. And over about 12 months, started researching options for farmers, and there's some organizations overseas doing a similar thing. And from there, lots of research and time, and I developed 12 months later, FTA was born in January 2023. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got to this point.
Yeah, super interesting story.
It's an amazing story and an amazing journey. How did you go about establishing those relationships with farmers and rescuing calves? Because I'm sure a lot of people will be interested, because we get a lot of questions around that as well, about the relationship with farmers. So, like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so God, it's kind of happened organically over a few years, I guess. So we started building relationships with certain farmers, and farmers, most of them are beautiful people, right? They don't want to be sending animals to slaughter. And I guess, we contact them. We know, when they're calving. So dairy farmers generally have they calve in spring and autumn. So, we would visit these farms, and one farmer in particular who holds a very special place in my heart. His name is Aidan, and I was visiting his farm regularly, and he was giving me milk from the farm to give to the calves that we were rescuing, which is, you know, not vegan really, but in the scheme of things, it was better for the calves' well-being. And, you know, I was visiting the farm 2 or 3 times a week to collect this milk. And through that, this beautiful relationship formed between me and Aidan, and we were talking, and he was, you know, really got into his hardships and the struggles of dairy farming. And I guess one of the moments for me was I showed him a video of one of the heifers that I rescued from his farm. Her name is Maggie, and she was asleep on my lap, you know, snoring like a puppy dog. And he had tears in his eyes. He could not believe, you know, he thought he had a connection with his animals, but there's a disconnection there really. And he was really taken back by that. And that really helped me understand, hey, hang on a minute, you know, these guys are human as well, but they've been doing it their whole lives. It's all they know. So they're conditioned, just like, you know, we're conditioned to eat meat, you know, it's the same sort of thing. Yeah, so that I guess is how these relationships formed, and that happened a few times with different farmers of farms that I was visiting, and really just asking a lot of questions, you know, like not being abrasive, just trying to be friendly and deeply understand their problems. And it was really beneficial to take that approach.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think most people don't understand, well, A, where their food comes from, but B, how farming actually works either. And I certainly don't profess to be an expert, but I know a little bit from, you know, now working in food, I guess. How many farmers, like in your experience, are, you know, from generational farming families? Like, is that a regular practice where, you know, new generations come into the family and they just take over the family farm and keep going, or what's sort of your experience with that?
Yeah, look, it is common, but it's becoming less common. So what we're finding is that the up and coming generations are like, no, I'm not having a bar of this. You know, they've watched their mum and dad suffer and struggle through this industry, and things are getting harder. So I guess it is happening, but the exit strategy in terms of passing it on to the family is becoming less and less. About 90% of farms in Australia, dairy farms in Australia, are, you know, 700 head type cattle. All the larger ones, much smaller, they're bigger corporations, but most of the farms in Australia are run by family farmers. Yeah.
And are they who most of your conversations have been with, as opposed to like large corporations that are more profit driven, I guess?
Yeah, that's right. So the small to medium dairy farmers, some large. I mean, the dairy farmer we're working with at the moment, he has a herd size of 1,000, so he's considered an extra large dairy. But yeah, it's this small to medium ones that generally need the most help. They're the ones that are suffering the most. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. We have a bit of secondhand information from Jacob, Dr. Jacob Goodwin, who's our head of innovation. Jacob's family runs cattle farm, I think cattle farm. And he used to work on the farm as he was growing up as well. So we have a bit of secondhand information from him around, you know, just how hard it is on the land. So what are some of the challenges that farmers have expressed to you? Because we get asked this question. We get asked this question a lot about, you know, well, you know, you're developing this, you know, cultivated meat product, or, you know, it could be any sort of, you know, alternative protein product, but specifically for what we're doing. And then we'll get asked, you know, well, what about the farmers? Like,
Yeah.
what, you know, are you going to put them out of business? Like what, you know, what are you going to do about the farmers? And I will often refer to the conditions and climate change and weather and all the events that we get told about from farmers. But I'm sure you would be much more of an expert in this area than we are. So what is your experience been from, you know, talking to farmers and the challenges that they're facing, I guess?
Yeah. Look, this is good timing. We're about to release the findings of a survey that we did. We surveyed 150 dairy farmers across Australia to understand exactly this, their struggles, but also their willingness to transition. And the two biggest challenges were rising operational costs and also mental health impacts. So they continue to be, and what we're seeing, what we found from the surveys, also what we're seeing on the ground with talking with farmers, is that it's very low profit margins. They're always kind of dangling on this, you know, line of just about going broke versus, you know, making just enough money to make ends meet. And yeah, it's just a very difficult for the small to medium dairy farmers. I guess for some of the bigger, larger scale farms, they've got, you know, more staff and more resources, and a lot of the time they're using robots now, by the way, not milking the way they used to, or the way most farms do. But yeah, it's rising operational costs and mental health impacts. I would say that the two biggest challenges facing dairy farmers right now.
I guess they're definitely kind of stuck in the same broken system that like the protein industry is trying to fix as well. Like everyone is kind of victim to the same system that's not working out for anyone. But it makes a lot of sense to come at it from the angle that Farm Transitions Australia is coming at the issue from. But it is very like outside of the box and like a pretty big undertaking. What motivated you to kind of like get involved and take on such like a big project or something that seems so out of the box?
Yeah. Look, I guess I'm very driven to stop this problem from an ethical perspective. Like I have seen and left behind hundreds and hundreds of little baby newborn calves, like sucking at my clothes, and I've got to pick 5 out of 100, you know, knowing that all those other 100 are going to be slaughtered in 3 days' time. That's really, to be honest with you, what drives me. However, through this experience, I have that compassion that I have for the calves and the cows and, you know, stuck in the system. It's also now kind of extended to the farmers as well, because I've seen physically how it's hurting them. Like it's just cruel. And it's not the dairy farmers making money, it's the processors that sit in the middle. You know, they're the ones taking the money. So, you know, and really, I guess, just really supporting some of these farmers now that we're working with at the moment. We have a dairy farmer, and just talking to him and learning his struggles on a day-to-day. Like even I'm learning things. I just like, I can't believe you're even still standing, like as a human being. How can you constantly put up with all of these, you know, hardships? He's had 4 floods. Like there was 2 floods and drought, and another flood that wiped the farm out within like a 5-year period, you know, and they can't stop milking during that time. They've got to keep milking, because if they stop milking, you know, the cows get mastitis and they have all sorts of issues. So yeah, it's I guess it's wanting to help, and knowing that in order to help the animals, I have learned that we must help the farmers first in order to do that. So I guess that's what drives me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's still a massive undertaking to try and enact systemic change. So I certainly admire and congratulate you on that. And I don't think people recognize how big a challenge that is. I think it's, as Ella said, like it's, you know, it's out of the box. It's too big for people to comprehend, and it's such a massive task that you're assisting with. It's amazing. So congratulations to you. I also wanted to dig in a little bit, just as you mentioned, because I don't think people understand. So when you mentioned, you know, rising costs and, you know, lower profit margins, and the processes in the middle are the ones that are making the money. Can you just like detail a little bit about, I guess, the business model of farming for the dairy farmers and how that works? Because I really think most people would have no idea.
Yeah. So the processors set the price that they pay for milk, not the farmers. And they're the ones in the middle. They process the milk and then they send it off to be, you know, sell it to be Woolies or Coles or wherever they sell it from. So I understand you're a dairy farmer and you've got, you know, you've got grain and fertilizer and water. You know, one of our farmers had a water bill, $120,000 a year just for water. You know, so you've got all these operational costs. Now, when inflation happens and costs for fuel and fertilizer and everything rise, that they still have to pay that, but they're only getting a set amount from a contract that they had with a processor from 12 months ago. So you understand they're getting pressure to make more, but their inputs are higher and their profit margins, that they're the amount they're getting from the processor stays the same. And then on top of that, along comes a flood or a drought, and you know, wipes out their pasture, or you know, so it's just constant struggle. And like I said, it's the processor in the middle that makes the money. And they get, you know, they charge what they charge, but then they can go on and sell it to the supermarket for whatever they like and make the money. So they're the ones lining their pockets in the middle, not the dairy farmers.
Am I right in saying that they're often locked into really long-term fixed price contracts? So there's no variability. So like when things like that happen, that drive their costs up, they're still stuck into supplying it at that set price. Whereas as you mentioned, those processors can then charge a higher price
Yeah.
as it fluctuates.
Yeah. Look, not so much in Australia. They are locked into a contract, but it's not like you see in the US, and it's generally updated every 12 months. So they'll either increase the milk price or drop it depending on what, what the processors are estimating. So yeah, it's not as restricted as what you see in the US, I guess.
Mm, mm. Still makes it difficult though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have these farmers, like from the stories that you've heard, like are these farmers people who've been there for decades? Have they seen more occurrence of like weather events like that recently? Is it becoming more of an issue now?
It's funny. I've asked that question. I asked that question to a beef farmer, one of our beef farmers that we're working with, and he's a second, third generational beef farmer. I guess yes and no. They are, I mean, it's more unpredictable, I guess. And I guess some of the seasons are getting longer, which is impacting things like pasture growth. I also feel like, I know this sounds silly, but I feel like dairy farmers are very short-sighted as well sometimes. Like if milk prices are good today, then things are good. It's like, but what's going to happen in 3 years' time? So yeah, it's it's a struggle for them.
And how has that been talking to farmers about it? Like, what is the initial reaction, or is it mostly farmers coming to you? Like, do you get any resistance from the dairy industry?
Look, we have things with FTA have accelerated a little bit quicker than we expected. So when we started last year in January, and my strategy was to launch the charity and use those first 12 to 18 months to really build our infrastructure, right? Because we're all volunteers and we're all working full-time jobs as well. So trying to balance that. And I honestly thought that we wouldn't see a farm for, at least 8 to 18 months to 2 years. So we've done no advertising into the farming communities. So we haven't actually put ourselves out there enough to get that backlash. So the farmers that we do have, the 2 farmers that we have come organically to us. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, we just sort of haven't been in that situation to get that backlash, but I'm sure it's coming. I'm prepping myself for it.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
I think that the perspective that you guys are coming from it at is very human and very like, it makes a lot of sense. It's intuitive. And I'm interested in the volunteers that you guys have and the support from the community, especially the like vegan or plant-based or alt protein community, what that's been like and how it's been received.
Yeah, look, we've established what we call a farmer advisory panel, and so in terms of farm transitions, it will call on expertise from all walks of life, accountants, agronomists, agribusiness experts, lawyers, like you name it. So what we're doing with the farmer advisory panel is to build that panel of experts, because obviously we don't have those expertise. So that's been really great. We've actually just had a ex-dairy farmer come on to our team, which is
Oh, wow.
exciting. So that just adds another level of advisory for our farmers. But our core group is myself and Phoebe Wiskin and Mackenzie Seven. So we've all been working within this space for 4 or 5 years now, and we're all driven by the same, just trying to make the world a better place. And we believe that there's life after dairy and that there's a better way, and we're all driven by that same purpose and goal, I guess. So yeah, that's who makes up our core team.
That's amazing, and but especially because you're all volunteers, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have a question which might seem counterintuitive, but have you had any conversations with the industry bodies such as MLA, for example, or the dairy corporations?
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not yet. I'm not brave enough yet.
totally get it. Yeah, I just wonder if and obviously it depends on who you talk to within these types of organizations, but in my mind it would make sense for the industry bodies to provide funding for organizations such as yourself, which provide support to farmers that want to transition out of the industry or into, you know, another type of industry. So I know common sense doesn't always prevail, but in my head, I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
Look, and I've thought about it, and I guess it's a timing thing. So, we've done the research, and even Dairy Australia they know that dairy farmers are struggling with their mental health. The research that we did, we found that it was nearly 70% of farmers said, yes, we're struggling with our mental health and it's impacting our family's mental health. So, but it's kind of like it's getting swept under the carpet and no one sort of wants to talk about it. And I think too, it's a perfect synergy, working with Dairy Australia to sort of say, look, this is happening. There's been 18,000 farms have closed their doors and no farms have put their hand up to replace those 18,000 farms in Australia since the 1980s. That's huge. That's a huge amount of farms that have closed. And they're expected to have another 5% of those closed this year. So it's hard. Dairy farming is hard, and I think Dairy Australia know it. And I think it's a great synergy, but no, we haven't had that conversation yet, Paul. It's something I'm working up to.
No, fair enough. Makes perfect sense. The other question I was going to ask you around that, obviously, mental health is such a big issue, but even, I mean, probably less so now. There is still a stigma around it, and particularly I think in regional areas. What has been your experience, I guess, with people on the farms, like opening up about that, because I imagine that could be quite difficult or challenging.
Yeah, it's very challenging. And I guess for dairy farmers, there's a lot of pride, particularly if it's been passed down through generations. They don't want to let their parents or their grandparents down. It is a massive challenge, and I guess it's not our area of expertise. So we have, tools and resources on our website, and we're looking to have someone on our advisory panel who can sort of fill this hole for dairy farmers. But it's probably one of the biggest barriers we face, I feel, is that whole psychological thing of they've failed because that they haven't been able to get the farm to operate. So yeah, it's and even from the farming community themselves, like farmers wanting to stay anonymous and not, for us to disclose who they are, not because they're frightened of the vegan community, but because they're frightened of the farming community. I mean, that in itself is terrible. They're not getting the support. It's just shame that they've, they're shutting the farm down. So yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, that's tough. That's definitely a tough situation. One other question that we get asked a lot as well is around, well, what the question we get asked is, oh, well, can the farmers just use your technology and develop cultivated meat and those sorts of things? So what can farmers transition into? And I guess a lot of it depends on the land that they're on and all those sorts of things. But generally speaking, or in your experience, the farmers that are looking to move out of what they're doing, what else can they do with the land?
Yeah, how long is a piece of string, Paul? I guess what we are looking to do, so it's important to understand we haven't successfully done a transition. We're at the very early stages with 2 farmers at the moment. And the approach I'm trying to take is one that I've taken similar with my business clients in business and marketing, is that it's not a one size fits all. You need to deeply understand the farmer, their goals, their challenges, what they've been through, their land, their situation, their debt, their family situation. There is so many things to consider. And I guess the approach I'm taking right now, and ask me again in 10 years' time because it could be wrong, but I guess it's understanding what the farmer wants and empowering them to go in that direction. All we are here to do, we're not here to tell them what to do. We're here to say, okay, Mr. Farmer, we believe there's a better way and we want you to have a better way of life. What is it that you love? What is it that your hopes, your dreams? Where do you want to go? I mean, one of the farmers we're working with, he wants to have an agritourism business with, a recreational park, and where people can come and go camping and, try a plant-based meal, or, so it really depends on what the farmer wants. And like you said, it does depend on their land as well. So our job is to support them through that process, explore those opportunities, and then take them down those pathways, whatever they may be. So yeah, I just don't think, a one size fits all approach will ever work, because we're talking about people's lives here. And, you know, growing mushrooms may sound viable and sound great, but if they're not passionate about growing mushrooms, then, you know, there's just no point pushing them in that direction, I guess. So yeah, I hope that answers your
Other
question.
issues to address. I think that that's an interesting point, and something that kind of links in with what you were saying about how you've taken your skills in like a business marketing kind of sense and applied that to contributing to, like, you know, creating a better future food system or more sustainable food system. And that's something that is in common with a lot of the guests that we speak with, and I guess even applies to farmers transitioning out of farming or cattle and dairy farming.
Yeah, definitely.
About like finding a passionate way to contribute to this like cause that is meaningful.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, what we need to be careful of as well is that, you know, we're helping these farmers, giving them a free service, which could potentially go on for many, many years, on the hope that they won't go back into animal farming. So, you know, our biggest thing here, and fear for me, is that they go back and start doing that again. So setting them up in a business that they might sound good on paper, but they're not passionate about it, I think is not the right approach at all. We need to be finding, you know, what these people love and pushing them in that direction.
Yeah, no doubt it has to be a collaborative decision for that buy-in and that, I guess, resilience or want to stick to doing whatever it is new that they're going to.
And even in the
be
mental
doing.
health piece, like the contribution to your life, that like doing work that you're passionate about and brings you happiness, like makes to your well-being mentally, like that's a problem that you guys are addressing as well there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, remember too that a lot of them are struggling with mental health directly due to dairy farming. So we're hoping if we can get them out, we can tick that box for them automatically. But I'm sure it's much harder than that. But yeah.
Makes sense.
What are some of, just in your experience, what are some of the reasons why some of the farmers that have reached out to you have felt stuck with what they're doing? Like, why haven't they been able to, you know, transition themselves or get out of the situation they're in, or think, you know, maybe even have the clear headspace to think about transitioning into something else?
That's exactly what it is. So these farmers are so bogged down. Like you need to imagine you're up at 3 a.m, you're home at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You are constantly putting out fires, sick cow, down cow, mastitis, grain delivery doesn't turn up. And, you know, there is constantly something that these people are having to worry about. So for farmers, they're so bogged down in that day to day that all they're doing is focusing on the problem that's happening today, and they don't have the mental capacity or energy to focus on the bigger picture. And that problem in itself is getting them deeper and deeper and deeper into this horrible cycle that they're in. So by having someone, I guess, I feel from our experience so far, which is limited, but I feel it's like just having to be heard. Like we go out to the farms and we listen and they talk and we leave there. And even those experiences have been very overwhelming, like overwhelming, empowering, and emotionally charged. You know, we leave a farm and we've spent the whole day talking to them, and they thank us and have tears in their eyes because they're like, oh my God, you listened, you know, like this is just, I just wanted to be heard. And a lot of them feel it's just them, you know, and we sort of make them feel better by saying, you know, it's not just you, this is a problem that's going on many farms all over Australia. So yeah, it's challenging.
And I think it comes back to that point of like people don't know how their food is made. Like you see milk in supermarkets and there's such a disconnect between like where the process that it goes through to that point and how many small farms there are actually doing this and the people behind those farms. You very rarely see it. You sometimes hear references to farmer mental health in like media, but very rarely is there much conversation around it or much understanding of the relation to what's going on with the industry. And I guess also like the in-between stages and the pricing and all of these different factors that are coming together.
They're so disconnected, and the farmers, they know that as well. And I guess that's part of the disappointment, and you know that they're putting in all these hours and struggle and sacrifice, and it's not even appreciated or understood, you know. So that does actually come up a lot where farmers say people don't even understand how their food's made. You know, it is a frustration for them. It's very difficult.
And I think that links into kind of what I mentioned earlier in the episode about what we're talking about today really is this kind of idea of actionable strategies of how we can move our world to a better future, a more sustainable future, and a better future for people as well. It's having that kind of human approach and more of like a pragmatic approach to creating the future that we all want to see, rather than like morally positioning people as you know, in the wrong place and exempt from being able to participate in a movement towards a better future. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I'm sort of coming at it the same place I come at the animal, you know, just with, I know it's cliche, but it is just compassion and heart. Like I need to come at it with love, you know, judgment, or you must do this, or, you know, so and we're hoping that with that approach, you know, it's easy to get overwhelmed in the problem. Particularly sometimes I just go, what am I doing? This is just huge. But I kind of bring it back to just one farm at a time. And I believe that if we can do one farm at a time, you know, we're building, and every day we're learning and growing and making mistakes and really deeply understanding the problem, so that we can develop programs and tools and resources and a blueprint for farmers all over Australia to then grab that blueprint and help that to fast track their transition. So that's what I'm hoping FTA will be down the track, that we can provide indirect and direct support to farmers, and that way we can be helping lots of farmers at any one given time.
I noticed on the website you had you have a three-pronged approach to your goal. So your goal of like transitioning out of dairy farming, it involved firstly farm transitions and farmer support, then advocacy, public awareness campaigns and education, and then thirdly relationships and collaboration with like-minded organizations. So I was interested in that advocacy, public awareness campaigns and education. What is most important to you guys to advocate for, and what do you want to get out there to people listening or everyone?
We want to advocate for the farmers and that what they're going through. We want people to know that it's not just bad for the environment and the animals, that it's bad for them as well. And we're doing, like I said, we're just about to release some research that we did of a survey for dairy farmers, but also to lobby government to try and get financial assistance for farmers. So 54% of farmers we found were open to transition, and 30% are willing to transition. So a lot of that advocacy is also about getting support for farmers through the public and through government, so that we can, you know, get them some financial support. Because I think as this problem gains more traction and the impacts of climate change start to really impact farmers, they're going to need it. They're going to need that financial support as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I think there's a real parallel there in terms of what, like, it might not sound like a parallel, but there's a real parallel between what Magic Valley is doing and what you're doing at Farm Transitions Australia, in terms of we're creating a meat product for people who do eat meat, and maybe people who don't eat meat who want to eat meat again, but like it is a meat product for people who eat meat. And it's kind of accepting that like this exists, this is the issue, it's there, or this is what's happening. How can we address this in a way that's actually going to create change, without judgment, without unrealistic expectations for change on a wide, broad, like industrial scale.
Yes. Yeah, definitely very similar.
Do you have other businesses or organizations that you look at for support or guidance in terms of where you're going? Are they in the vegan space, sustainability space, and how has that kind of guided your process there?
Yeah, look, there's a few organizations overseas. Stock Free Farming, Rebecca Knowles, she's amazing what they're doing over in the UK, and she's also on our farmer advisory panel. You know, I've reached out to her a few times, and she does give us some support. Transformation over in the States, they're also another organization that we have been in contact with. They're all a little bit different though to what we're doing, and I guess they help farmers transition into plant-based farming, whereas we will help farmers transition out completely and down explore a new career path or a new business model, or into plant-based farming. But to be honest with you, I've got most of my inspiration just through running business and working with businesses, and really just applying the same sort of principles, because with what I do with my own business is, you know, we go into small, medium, large organizations and work out business strategy and marketing strategy, a lot of those times building brands and then transitioning them out of one brand into another brand, you know. So I've taken kind of a lot of those things that I've learned and used those. Because really, with what we're doing with farmers, it's about, we are a trusted project manager, for them, friend, someone they can trust, and they've only have to work directly with us, and then we facilitate and bring in all of the experts on their behalf, so they can continue to manage the farm, and they've only got one point of contact, and then we can go around and facilitate all of these other consultants or whatever they need to assist with the transition. So it's really just project management, really.
Makes complete sense, because it would be so hard to navigate.
You make it sound so simple. Oh, it's just project management. I know that I know that that's not true.
No, it's not that simple.
No, because I mean, what you're doing is very much, an innovation. It's very innovative. It's new. It hasn't been done before. I know you mentioned a couple of those other organizations, but everything that you're doing is breaking new ground, and I can relate to how difficult that is, because there's no playbook to follow.
Yeah.
And particularly while you're running, your own businesses as well. So I know a lot of our founders listening will be like, how on earth are you doing that? So like, how do you manage that? And how do you manage, your time and your priorities, and I guess your own, physical and mental health as well? Like how are you managing to do all of this?
I'm not. No, look, I have been, for the last few years, I knew this was coming. I'm a planner and a strategist, so I have been positioning my own business and making sure that it was ready to take this blow. So I still oversee and operate my own business, but I have lots of really great trusted people that support me and surround me. I've got a very supportive husband, and that's the only way that I can do this. However, it is reaching that point. Like I said, it has really, we've had these 2 farmers come to us for support, and we didn't expect it at this point in time. So it is very challenging at the moment. Like, I'm working long hours and it's difficult. So yeah, it's, I'm hoping that once we get some funding, I can pay key people around me to come in and support me more, so I continue to manage all 3, because we also have another charity as well that we operate for rescue and rehoming. So it's difficult.
It's amazing what you're doing. Yeah.
The animal companion cows, I did set that up with FTA in mind. So knowing that we were transitioning farmers out, I wanted somewhere safe for some of the animals to go. And honestly, we're already seeing the benefits of that. So a lot of people have told me to forget about the animals and don't worry about the animals. But for a lot of farmers, I know it doesn't sound, a lot of vegans won't believe me when I say this, but they do care. And to be able to say to some of the farmers, look, we've just found homes for 30, the farm we're working with at the moment, we've just found homes for 30 of his favorites, and they're all going to go on to live a beautiful forever life. That's given him hope. That's lifted his spirits, because he's closing the farm down, but most of the time those animals will be sent to slaughter. But if we can save a handful of those animals through a charity that we've set up and we've got established, it's good. It's done some good, so yeah.
It's interesting, because that's a comment even we get on like our social media that I've noticed a few times. What's going to happen to the animals? And there's maybe a paradox there that some people might point out, but there's definitely kind of a human aspect when you think of the animals and what's going to happen in this transition phase.
Look, it's the hardest, honestly, the hardest thing for me personally is that moment when, we've come into this to save and to stop this suffering cycle of animals and for farmers. But I'm the person responsible for shutting the farm down and ordering a truck to come and pick up hundreds and hundreds of animals to send them to slaughter, because at the end of the day, those animals they're the cash flow for the farm. So that's been very hard for me to process, but I know that once that ends on that farm, that cycle of suffering and ends for that farm. So that's been a big challenge, trying to process that and knowing that animals will go to slaughter because we're closing farms down. It's difficult for me.
That would be hard.
You're covering all the bases there, which is amazing.
Trying to. Ask me again, like I said, ask me again in a few years' time how it's all going.
That's all right. I could say the same thing about what we're doing. what does Farm Transitions Australia need? Like, how can people help? What can our listeners help with if they want to get involved? Can they help with their, do you need more volunteers? Do you need skills? Do you need donations? Do you need like partner organizations? Like what would help the most in terms of helping you with everything that you're doing, but take, your capacity to the next level to be able to help, more farmers transition?
Yeah. At the moment, the biggest thing we need is funding. Either through corporate funding or through just donations. People can go onto our website. We've got 2 appeals running at the moment as well for our dairy and beef farmer, so they can go on and learn about their stories and understand where that money is going. The other way is just to follow, share the crap out of our page and our information, to just try and get that information out to their network as well through social. The other way is if you have experience, if you're an accountant or a lawyer, any area of expertise really, to jump on our website and inquire about being on our farmer advisory panel. It is pro bono, but it just really assists us with that initial setup and planning phase of a farm transition, and just to give the farmer a really good diverse range of skills that we can provide to them to give them the very best advice possible. Yeah, so that's the 3 ways that people can help.
Amazing. Do you want to mention the website address there as well?
Oh yeah. It's farmtransitionsaustralia.org. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
And do you know what your social media handles are as well? We will put them in the notes to the podcast. I never remember ours off the top of my head, but if you know yours,
no idea. But yes, put them in the notes.
Isn't it farm_transitions_Australia? I think I see it on the Magic Valley account.
Yes.
That's great. And what about, I guess, if there's farmers out there listening or that, people that are listening have, family, friends, relatives, neighbors that are in, farming and thinking about transitioning, where's the best place for them to go? Is it to the website and access the resources there?
Yeah, or just through the contact form of our website, and we can give them a call and talk through it with them. And I guess not to think about it too much as such a big issue that they need to solve all on their own, that they do have support and that they're not alone, and that there's so many other farms out there going through the same situation. And our role is to empower them to have a gracious transition from the industry that they generally love, and that they haven't failed, and it's okay. Yeah, they're doing the right thing to get out now why they still can.
Absolutely. And it's an amazing message. And yeah, I've got a whole heap of admiration for what you're doing and your approach that you're taking, which is just amazing. And, that collaborative approach, I think, is essential for probably for most change, but particularly for, such large change to occur, that, we're all working towards that collaboration is essential. So kudos to you.
Very important.
Second that 100%.
And you guys as well. It's a collective effort, we've got to attack this from all angles. So what you guys are doing is super important. And I wish you would hurry up, because I need to feed my pets meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No pressure. Thanks, Krystal. Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah.
No, thank you for what you're doing. You guys are doing awesome. So it's very, very exciting watching this space all unfold and grow. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really amazing talking to you and hearing your story and what you guys are doing at Farm Transitions Australia.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Krystal.